All right, when we broke yesterday afternoon, we were in the process of hearing testimony of Michael and Thompson. May I resume that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Could we light for both? Thank you.
For what?
For my wife.
What's the matter with your wife?
High blood pressure, we go on just ailments.
Yeah, sure. Do you have any yourself?
Yes.
What is your health problem?
Gas, acid reflux, they call it GERD. Heart palpitation, SVT, high cholesterol.
At this point in time, you needed employment, correct?
Yes.
Did Mr. Preston know you needed employment?
Yes, I spoke to him back in March.
Were council members Wilson and Waldrop the type of people who were known to disseminate confidential information to the public when they should not have?
Yes, yes.
Did council member Wilson ever disseminate information that you believed was confidential?
Yes.
Did you do it publicly?
Yes.
How about Mr. Waldrop?
Yes. Can I go into detail?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Preston's personal credit card number was disseminated, and that wound up on the Anderson newspaper, Anderson Independent Mail website. Okay. County credit card numbers in general were disseminated, and they ended up spread out all over the county. Those cards had to be canceled, and new cards had to be issued. There was an issue where, as chairman, I disseminated some information to council, and I purposely marked it confidential, with a red stamp. It showed up on the Independent Mail's website with a confidential stamp on it. So when you have a confidential document marked confidential on the website, had no business being marked. So it was knowledge that they disseminated stuff that they shouldn't be disseminated.
Now, as of August of 2008, was your financial position something you felt the public needed to know about?
My job with the county?
Yeah.
No.
You needed a job, right?
It's personnel issues. You don't discuss personnel issues.
Were you concerned that the same individuals who had circulated the harassing letters might misuse information like you were applying for a job?
Of course they would, yes.
Were they the same people that caused you to be scared for your own safety?
Yeah, I believe they were.
Were they the same people who called Mr. Preston's house and spoke to his boy?
I'm going to have to assume that it was.
Let's look at Exhibit 9. During your earlier examination, you testified that this was the information regarding the appraisal course that you had earlier spoke with Mr. Preston about in March of 2008. My first question is, did I get that correct?
Yes.
Is it your understanding that Mr. Preston was asking you to take these appraisal courses because you would ultimately work for Anderson County?
That was my understanding.
Is it also your understanding that Mr. Preston was asking you to take these appraisal courses because at some point you might obtain a position with the assessor's office?
That's where it started, with the assessor's office, yes, sir.
If Was Tom Wright the lawyer hired by the county to provide representation in relation to Mr. Preston's anticipatory breach of contract claim?
Yes.
Was Mr. Bright an appointed staff?
It was my understanding from the, what's that book?
Martindale Hubble.
Yeah, that he did personnel issues, so that's my understanding.
Was Mr. Bright hired because of his background in employment issues?
I presented 3 attorneys to the council, and we discussed it. Then we went back to the chamber, and we took a vote.
Now, during your earlier testimony, you stated that Mr. Waldrop had objected to almost everything. You recall that?
Yes.
Was Mr. Waldrop opposed to hiring an independent law firm?
I think he was opposed to us hiring an attorney at all at that time.
Fair enough. When you voted on Mr. Preston's severance agreement, was it your belief there was potential risk to Anderson County in relation to the claim asserted by Mr. Preston?
Was there risk to the county because of that?
Yes, sir.
I don't understand.
Okay. Did you understand Mr. Preston was asserting a claim against Anderson County?
Yes, the anticipatory breach, I understand that, yes.
Was it your belief that his assertion of that claim
Of the breach?
of breach posed a risk to Anderson County?
Yes, yes.
Was Anderson County represented by Mr. Bright? Tom Bright?
Yes.
Was it also your belief that protracted litigation could hurt Anderson County?
Yes.
And if we look back to that last exhibit from February 20th of 2008 that we looked at, and I mean the last as in the last marked exhibit, which I believe is exhibit 19.
19?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hold on. Okay, got it?
In fact, wasn't it true that historically there were actual instances of an economic development where political infighting by the county council had threatened potential economic development initiatives?
Yeah, that was a concern of mine, yeah.
And was that same sort of political infighting part of your concern about the potential risk to economic development that might result from the protracted litigation that could be brought by Mr. Preston against Anthony?
Yes, I didn't think it was in the county's best interest to go through a drawn-out litigation process.
Would it be in the county's best interest to spend $2 million investigating Mr. Preston?
No.
Of course not, right? Could you look at Exhibit 11 for me?
Okay?
In relation to Exhibit 11, which is the November 13th, 2008 Buyer One job advertisement, did you look down where it says requirements?
Yes.
Did you have a high school diploma or GED equivalent?
I have a master's in business.
Did you have 2 years or more of experience in purchasing and procurement operations?
I have 9 years of purchasing experience.
Were you honorably discharged from the United States Navy?
Yes, I served 6 years and was honorably discharged.
Can you turn the page and look at the second page to Exhibit 11, which is the page that is base stamp PLF 00061?
Okay,
Can you find your name on the back page?
I'm number 3.
Okay. Is that 1119 next to your name?
Yes.
Did your application specify what buyer position you wanted?
No. It just said, it was just buyer. He said a buyer's position was opening and I should apply.
Let's look at exhibit number 12.
Okay.
What is the date reflected on the buyer 2 job opening announcement of Anderson County?
November 19th.
November 19, 2008?
Yes.
Is that the same date that we saw in exhibit 11?
Yes.
Are these the positions that Mr. Preston had identified to you as likely becoming available in a few months?
He just said buyer. He didn't say 1 or 2 or any number. He just said a buyer's position.
I want you to look down at the requirements section on exhibit 12.
Okay.
The requirements require a bachelor's degree in business, marketing, or accounting.
Okay.
Do you have an MBA?
Yes.
Do you have 4 years of progressively responsible supervisory work?
9 years.
You have 9 years?
9 years.
How much was the commodity portfolio that you oversaw when you worked for Bosch?
56 million.
$56 million?
Yes.
Were you honorably discharged from the United States Navy?
Yes.
Mr. Tessier asked you about a quote from an article appearing in the Anderson Independent Mail from June of 2008. Do you recall those questions?
No.
Questions about an article where you were interviewed in relation to going to work for the county?
Okay, yes, I recall.
Do you believe it's the county administrator's job to monitor the statements made by county officials to the media?
No.
Is it the county administrator's job to correct incorrect statements made by council members?
No.
Do you recall any statements made by Councilwoman Wilson to the media that proved incorrect?
Oh, all the time.
How about statements made by Mr. Waldrop? Do you recall any statements Mr. Waldrop made to the media that proved incorrect?
He was frequently making erroneous errors too, but I don't recall any offhand.
Was it Joey Preston's job to alert the media that elected officials had somehow stated something incorrectly?
No.
In fact, would it be better for the Anderson County if the county administrator did not go behind elected officials and tried to correct them with respect to media statements?
Yes, yeah. Yes, I would agree. Yes, yeah. Yes, I would agree.
We looked at Exhibit 19, where they were talking about economic development projects imperiled by infighting by Anderson County Council. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Would it be preferable if the county administrator did not go behind county council members to the media and correct statements on the record?
Yes. If he did that, he would get nothing done. So.
When you were in the Navy, did you ever obtain a security clearance?
Yes,
What level?
top secret.
What does obtaining a top secret security clearance entail?
They went to my home where I was raised. They spoke to my neighbors. They spoke to the corner market that I could walk to from my home. They scared the dickens out of my parents. I was interviewed by what is the NCIS, and it was ultimately granted.
Do you recall instances when Councilwoman Wilson was disruptive during public session?
Council meetings,
Yes, sir.
in my opinion, all the time. I mean, she does not know how to follow Robert's Rules of Order. When I was chairman, I would frequently have to call her down.
Did she often impede getting work done?
Yeah. During a meeting?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sure.
What relationship exists between your hiring, the hiring of you by Anderson County, and your vote on Mr. Preston's severance agreement?
None. One had nothing to do with the other.
If Anderson County had not given you a job, would you have voted differently on Mr. Preston's severance agreement?
No. One had nothing to do with the other. It was determined back in August that I was going to be a county employee when my term ended on the council. The stuff with Joy didn't start until September, and the severance stuff was November. So, I mean, that was already settled back in August.
If I use the term quid pro quo, do you know what that means?
Yes, sir.
This for that? Was
Okay.
there a this for that agreement between you and Mr. Preston in relation to your vote on his severance agreement in return to receive a job from Anderson County?
One had nothing to do with the other, so there was no, what you said.
Is the answer no? There
Yes.
was no quid pro quo
Yes,
agreement?
sir, the answer is no.
Was Mr. Preston advantaged in any way by your hiring?
Advantage?
Yes, sir.
He was leaving, yes, sir.
Were you advantaged in any way by the approval of Mr. Preston's severance agreement?
Yes, sir.
Is the reason why you didn't perceive to be any conflict on your vote for Mr. Severance agreement because no conflict existed?
Yes, there was no conflict. One had nothing to do with the other.
You weren't being advantaged in any way by voting on his severance agreement, were you?
No, it was determined back in August that I was going to be a county employee, so one had nothing to do with the other.
Mr. Johnson, I have one more question for you. When was the personnel subcommittee formed?
January,
January of 2008.
of any year, this county ordinance.
And I lied, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
Is the county council chairman considered an ex officio member of all the subcommittees?
Can I attend any? Yes, I can attend any committee. I do believe. I don't really recall the ordinance, but I think that's the way it is.
I don't know whether your attorney has any questions to clarify for the record, but I don't have any further questions. I enjoyed meeting you. I wish we had met under better circumstances, but thank you for your time and thank you for being here today.
I have a few follow-ups. Mr. Thompson, you testified that in addition to the harassing letters that you received, that there were also things that were said on the radio. Do you recall that statement?
Yes.
What radio are you talking about?
AM station in Anderson.
Is there a particular show on that radio station?
The Rick Driver Show.
And what things were said about you and other members of council that you considered threatening?
Well, one person said that I need to check my homeowner's insurance, and I took that as to be a threat. That they were constantly or frequently belittling members of council and Mr. Preston.
Were you or other council members ever threatened with bodily harm, such as threats made about killing you or someone else?
Killing? I don't recall.
Do you recall anyone ever saying that they were willing to go to jail to take any of you out?
I remember that being said, but I don't remember to who or who said it. They were pretty vicious. That's what I recall.
And Mr. Tessier asked you about the ethics letter that you wrote down to Mr. Hayden about Ms. Wilson's voting on Beaver Dam Sewer. And I believe you testified that you do not recall her ever recusing herself from those votes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. If you were an ex officio member of all committees, including the Personnel Committee, would it have been inappropriate for you to have information about the severance from Mr. Greer?
Yes, no ma'am.
Okay. And the letter from Mr. Preston's attorney, Mr. Hoskins, you said that that was at the end of September of 2008?
That's what I'm thinking.
And do you recall that that letter was stamped confidential?
Yes, that was the letter that I was referring to that wound up on the newspaper website.
And did you give a copy of that letter to the newspaper?
No, it was later discovered that Mr. Walter was the one that leaked it.
And do you recall that in the county council meeting on October 21st, he denied that? County council meeting the night you hired Mr. Bright.
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah. There was some discussion about who did this.
So he lied.
He didn't tell the truth.
We've included certain excerpts that we objected to, just included them with the notifications that we gave you that you can sort that out. And I think we've got this where it needs to be, so it's approximately 4 hours. So I don't know if that helps. Yeah, we're ready to play. I just wanted you to just tell us anytime you want us to stop.
I'm tell you, but you cautioned me about how long it's going to be. I'm aware of that. But we're here to try the case. I'm here to do it. So let's get it done. Anything further? All right, you may begin to publish the deposition. We may stop for lunch in the middle. I suspect we will.
Can you tell us your full name for the record?
It was Joey Ray Preston,
And where were you born?
Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
What was the address at which your family lived when you were born?
330 East King Street, or Main Street. They changed the street name.
Was that in Winston-Salem or different?
King, North Carolina.
And how long did you live at that address? Approximately.
21 years.
So you grew up there basically? Is that fair?
Yes.
Where did you go to high school?
South Stokes High School.
Where do you currently reside?
2835 Old Williamston Road, Anderson, South Carolina.
Who lives there with you? Anyone?
My youngest son,
How old is he?
13.
Do you have other children besides
Yes.
13-year-old? Who are they?
William?
Is that it?
Yes.
So two sons?
Yes.
Is William over 18?
Yes.
Is he in college?
Yes.
Is the property at Williamson Road in your name only now?
No, it's still in both names.
After high school, did you go on to college?
Yes.
Where did you go to college?
University of North Carolina at Charlotte.
Did you graduate?
Yes.
What was your degree in?
I have a bachelor's degree in political science and psychology.
After high school, did you go on to college?
Yes.
Where did you go to college?
University of North Carolina at Charlotte.
Did you graduate?
Yes.
What was your degree in?
I have a bachelor's degree in political science and psychology.
And what year did you graduate from college?
1986.
What year did you graduate from high school?
1981.
Did you go directly to college
I
after
did.
high school? Took 5 years to finish the joint program?
Yes.
And what did you do after college?
I went to graduate school.
And did you get a degree?
No. Yes. Well, later on I did, not there.
So immediately after you graduated in 1986, you continued on into
Correct.
a graduate program?
Yes.
And where was that?
University of North Carolina at Charlotte.
And what were you studying?
Public administration.
And you did not finish the degree, at least not immediately, is that fair?
I went to work.
Were you taking the classes while you were working?
Yes.
When did you ultimately get a degree, a master's degree?
I have a graduate certificate from Clemson, not from that.
And the graduate certificate is in what
Public
field?
administration.
Is that, just help me out because I don't know, but is that short of a master's degree?
Correct.
And I take it you've not continued your education sufficiently to obtain a master's degree in public administration as of yet? Where did you go to work after you graduated with your BA in 1986? Where did you go to work?
City of Charlotte.
Did you go immediately to work for the city of Charlotte?
Actually, I was working for Charlotte before I graduated. I was working well.
What were you doing for the city of Charlotte?
I was the administrative services officer for the operations department.
And about how long did you hold that job?
Approximately 3 years. So,
Does that take you to about 1989? Or are you counting some period of time before you graduated?
probably about that time.
And did you then change jobs within the city of Charlotte, or did you go somewhere else?
Actually, I had a couple of jobs in the city of Charlotte. I worked in the operations department and also worked in the operations administration, which is it would be equivalent to the public works division of the county.
And after those 2 jobs within the city of Charlotte, what did you do for employment?
I went to work for York County, South Carolina.
And what was your job?
I was director of zoning and development standards.
About how long did you hold that job?
Approximately a year.
And where did you go next for employment?
Cherokee County.
What did you do for them?
I was hired as the assistant administrator that became the administrator the first day of the job.
How did that come about?
The administrator, I believe, had a heart attack.
How long did you stay with Cherokee County as an employer?
It was right at 10 years, maybe a little more.
Were you the county administrator pretty much the entire time?
Yes.
And where did you go after that?
Anderson County?
As the county administrator?
Yes.
When did you start with Anderson County?
I believe it was 1996.
How large, in comparing Anderson County to Cherokee County, what would be the roughly what would you say the difference is in terms of the budget that you were responsible for as the administrator of each?
Cherokee would have been about a third, probably, of that originally started in Anderson.
And can you give me a rough idea of the number of employees you were responsible for as county administrator when you started in Anderson County?
Pretty much is about the same the entire time I was there, probably. I think around 850 or so.
And about how many employees were you responsible for as county administrator for Cherokee County when you finished your time there?
About half of that.
And would it be fair to say you stayed with Anderson County until December 31, 2008?
Yes.
When you left Anderson County, your salary was around $160,000 a year or so.
I believe that's correct.
Was that the highest salary you had ever earned in your working career up till that point?
Yes. That was just salary. That didn't include benefits.
Right. Do you recall your highest salary at Cherokee County when you were the administrator? Not counting benefits.
I believe it was right at 65,000.
And when you started in Anderson County in around 1996, do you recall about what your salary was?
I think it was in the mid-70s.
So over the course of 12 years roughly, you increased from about 75,000 to roughly $160,000 in salary.
Yes.
This case obviously centers around, well, I shouldn't say centers around, much of what happened that we're interested in this case happened in 2008. So I want to have you walk me through what happened in 2008 in terms of the election cycle that particular year. Tell me if you would, starting in early 2008, who was up for election in 2008 and how the election played out in your view?
I think all of the council members were for election.
And that's what Anderson County does, is it not?
Yes.
Every 2 years, they come up for election?
That's right.
And that's the entire county council?
The entire council.
And so the election that's going to be held in 2008 is going to install it's going to install whoever is elected will be installed on January 1, 2009. Is that right?
That's right.
And so of the 7 members of council, do you recall when in 2008 the primaries were held?
I believe it was June.
And do you know if everyone who was on county council at the beginning of 2008 was running for re-election?
I believe so.
Was anyone on the county council at the beginning of 2008, let me ask you differently, did anyone who was on council, Anderson County Council, at the beginning of 2008 indicate a desire not to run for re-election at any point in time that you recall?
Probably, I believe that's it. That Gracie Boyd would have to.
Did you become aware at some point that Michael Thompson was indicating that he might not seek re-election in 2008?
Yes.
What did you do about it, if anything?
Just talk with him about it.
Did you encourage him to run for re-election?
I did.
Do you know if he followed your advice?
No, I don't know if he followed my advice or not.
In the end, you would agree he did decide to go ahead and run for re-election?
Yes,
Whether you had involved in that or not, you can't say.
that's right.
Would you agree that in 2008, at least at the beginning of the year, you had a county council in place that was favorably disposed toward you?
Yes, generally.
How would you describe your relationship with the sitting county council at the beginning of 2008?
It was, about average over my career, that I've experienced.
Average in terms of what?
That's getting along with each other.
You with county council?
Yes.
Right, basically that's what I'm trying to get at. What was your understanding of how it was supposed to work? Your relationship as a county administrator versus as you relate to the county council?
There were 4 different forms of government in South Carolina. The council administrator, form of government, the administrator is the CEO. and the board, the council members, and the governing board.
So if you try to liken it to a private company setting, what you're describing is that the county administrator in this form of government is effectively operating as what you think of as the CEO of a private company. Is that fair?
To some degree, not completely.
Was it your understanding that the county administrator was the person responsible for implementing the policy of county council through the employees of the county?
Implementing to some degree. It would depend on the acts of council, and then, of course, there are resolutions, and resolutions can change monthly as far as how policies should be administered or will be administered.
And how would you describe your responsibility as county administrator for the day-to-day operations of the county? In Anderson County, I'm not sure if it was different in Cherokee County, but I'm not asking about Cherokee County.
Is to carry out the policies and procedures to the best of my ability. In a political environment.
Being a county administrator, would you describe that as a political job?
Yes.
So anywhere you might be as a county administrator, you're dealing with politics. Is that fair?
To some degree,
But to some degree, portion depends on just sort of how well you're getting along as a county administrator with that particular serving county council.
No, I always get along with the rest of the community too.
You're dealing with politics not just with respect to your county council that you're directly reporting to, but also to the citizens of the county as well. Is that how you would describe it?
Yes.
There's a lot of people that you have to try to keep happy, I guess.
Yes.
In 2008, were there members of council on the existing council that were difficult for you to work with?
Yes.
Who would you say they were?
I know I'm not supposed to ask questions of you, but about layers or levels of difficulty.
Right. No, I think you can ask questions.
Extremely. Extremely difficult, Cindy Wilson.
Okay.
And that could be at times.
Is this your description of how it was to work with these council members in 2008, or is this more broad than that? Like over the course of time that you were the county administrator?
Over the course of time that I had to work with each of those. But,
so let me make sure I understand that. Over the course of time that you served as county administrator, and I realize that during your tenure, not all these folks might have been on the county council at all times.
I think they pretty much served together the entire time.
Okay. Anyone you can think of that was not on council for the bulk of your tenure as county administrator, of the ones you listed?
Well, the ones that are listed, I believe Greer stayed was on longer than Andy Wilson.
Ron Wilson?
No, Cindy Wilson. I think or they may have been elected at the same time. The rest of them, Gracie Ford is on the list, but she was on longer than any of them.
But you would not describe her as extremely difficult to work with?
No.
Would you describe the other ones? Let's see, I got 1, 2, 3. I got 6 of the 7 in the extremely difficult category. Would you say they were always extremely difficult to work with?
Say they're all extremely. The top two are extremely difficult.
I got you.
With the exception of Wilson, he's very difficult.
Ron
To
Wilson.
some degree, yes. He's wonderful in her too.
Right. And Larry Greer, Michael Thompson, and Bill McAfee would be at least less difficult than.
Moderately.
Were there county council members in 2008 that tended to oppose what you were trying to accomplish within the county?
My job wasn't to accomplish, my job was just to carry out their policies and procedures. My job was to administer their vision statement, goals, and objectives. I believe I was a target just been doing my job.
You believe you were a target
Correct.
of whom?
Primarily Cindy Wilson, Bob Walter.
And would you describe yourself as being a target of Cindy Wilson and Bob Walter starting in 2008 or starting at some time prior to 2008?
Cindy Wilson probably starting in 1998.
And what about Mr. Walter?
Probably 2005 or 2006.
What about the rest, the other 5 members of county council in 2008?
Wilson probably 2000, probably 2004.
Which one?
Ron Wilson.
Oh,
Walter probably 2005 or 4 too.
did you ever feel you were a target of any of the other council members that you've not mentioned?
Bill McAbee and Michael Thompson.
And did you feel like you were a target of Bill McAbee or Michael Thompson in 2008?
No.
What had happened that made you feel like you were a target of Bill McAbee and Michael Thompson at any point in time during your tenure?
Campaign on a platform to fire me.
They did?
Yes.
You remember when, like what year that was?
Probably, I don't know, sir. Probably it was an even year, I believe. Probably 04, maybe.
Was that a re-election campaign for them, or was that their election?
Election campaign.
So Bill McAbee and Michael Thompson first were elected to council, whatever year that was.
Yeah.
Your recollection was a campaign for election on a platform that included firing you
And Ron Wilson too.
and Ron Wilson too.
Yeah.
Do you know if Ron Wilson was being elected for the first time in that campaign where these folks indicated a desire to fire you?
I believe so.
And all 3 of them were elected in that year?
I can't answer that. I don't remember.
Would it be fair to say there was a year when one or more of Bill McAbee, Michael Thompson, and Ron Wilson were running for election to council based on a campaign which in part included terminating Joey Preston if they were elected?
I don't think that was the only reason they were running, of course. Yeah, there were other reasons, but that was part of it.
And that's something you knew was part of their platform, so to speak?
It was being talked about in the community.
And when they were elected, whenever they were elected, did they take steps to terminate you?
No.
What happened? Do you know? Do you know why they didn't try to terminate you?
No.
Did you make any effort to claim that your contract was anticipatorily breached because council members were elected who had publicly indicated that they wanted to fire you
No.
if elected?
No. No.
Why not?
It was different. It wasn't the same.
How was it different?
Council members were not having meetings and with existing council members and secret meetings. And the city and county council members weren't having meetings and not inviting me to those meetings and making motions to put me on administrative leave without a hearing. I was suspending employees.
Now, I'll get to that in a minute, but just to touch on it a little bit. In 2008, what you're saying is the reason you were concerned in that year of an anticipatory breach of your employment agreement by certain council members and newly elected council members was because they were having meetings?
Yes. Yes. It was a meeting in August that, for some reason, I was asked not to attend.
And you said something about suspending employees?
Albert made a motion when asked the council to adopt a motion, resolution that I'd be suspended in January.
The primary election in 2008 Do you recall who was reelected and who was not in terms of the sitting council members? Like who was on their way out after that primary election occurred?
It was Larry Greer, Michael Thompson, and Bill McAfee.
They had lost in the primaries?
Yes.
And do you know who had won the primary in their stead?
Eddie Miller, Tommy Dunn, Tom Allen.
And the three you just named, those three are sitting council members even now, is that right?
That's right.
Did you assist in the campaigns of any particular county council members who were running for office in 2008?
No. No.
Would it be improper for you to assist in campaigns of council members?
No. I think Hatch Act would protect me there as long as I did it on my own time.
And so even if it were on your own time, are you saying you did not assist any campaigns of council members in 2008?
I did not.
Why not?
Chose not to.
Did you attempt to steer campaign contributions to anyone running for office in 2008?
No.
Did you ever suggest to anyone that they make campaign contributions to any particular candidate in 2008?
No.
Have you done that in the past?
Yes.
Okay. Who did you suggest make contributions? Who were you talking to?
Inez Tenenbaum.
Do you recall ever making suggestions to any potential contributors that they should contribute to a political campaign?
Any political campaign?
Well, you narrow it down. Any campaign for county council
No.
in Anderson County?
No, do not.
Never in your career.
Not if I can recall.
After the primary occurred in which Mr. Moore, Mr. Dunn, and Mr. Allen defeated, and I'm not sure which one defeated which one, but defeated Greer, Thompson, and McAfee, did you become concerned about what the incoming council might do once they took office?
Yes.
How so? What was your concern?
I was concerned based on what they were saying during the campaigns.
Would you agree with me that up until this point, those who had won the primaries had not said anything in their campaigns much different than what had been said previously in campaigns by Mr. McAfee, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Thompson, in terms of wanting to get Joey Preston removed from office?
No, I would not.
Was there something substantively different about what these folks said in their campaigns?
Absolutely.
How so? I'm just talking about leading up to the primary vote.
Right. Bob Walterfield sent a letter out to all of his constituents targeting me.
And he was a sitting councilman?
He was.
Okay. What about the ones who won the primary? That's what I'm talking about. Now, set aside those who were sitting members of council. So talk about the newly elected folks, right?
Tom Allen.
Okay, yeah, so that's what I'm getting at. What do you recall them saying about terminating you that was substantively different than what prior council members had said during their election?
Telling constituents that they're going to get rid of me.
All three of them are you talking about? Tom Allen, Tommy Dunn?
Tom Allen, Cindy Wilson, Bob Walter.
What about any more?
Absolutely.
And what, I think you already said Tommy Dunn? What do you remember?
I can't recall Tommy Dunn at this point in time. Think about that for a minute. I know Eddie Moore, yes.
So let me make sure I got this in my head. This is leading up to the primaries, and I assume Bob Waldrop and Cindy Wilson had to run in the primaries as well.
Correct, yes.
And so all four of those folks, Tom Allen, Eddie Moore, Bob Waldron, and Cindy Wilson. You're not sure about Tommy Dunn at the moment?
I believe he participated in meetings at that time too, so I'm gonna throw him in that bunch too, but I believe he did, yeah.
Okay, and just to make sure, and I apologize right now in terms of trying to make sure I give you the right time frame that I'm talking about. And if meetings occurred in the time frame I'm talking about, that's totally fine. But what I'm trying to get at is leading up to the primary election itself. So when we're just in the campaign mode, essentially, because we don't know who's going to win the primary. Was there anything substantively different that Tom Allen, Eddie Moore, Bob Waldron, and Cindy Wilson were saying about terminating you if elected than had been previously said by other folks running for council in the past?
Much more. It was totally different, unlike any campaign I had ever experienced in my whole life.
We were talking about basically campaign platform type statements where individuals who were elected in 2008, who won the primary, I guess, in 2008, had indicated they wanted to get rid of you or fire you. And what I wanted to know was, what was the substantive difference between what those folks were saying, people like Tom Allen, Eddie Moore, Bob Waldron, and Cindy Wilson? What was the substantive difference between what they were saying and what people had said in the past about wanting to get rid of you as part of their election platform?
Well, in the past, the candidates that had run for office, I believe, were fairer in that they indicated that they may not support me, but they never indicated in the public that they wanted to change administrations. For example, Bob Waldron sent a political campaign letter out and identified me as a target. That's an example.
I mean, unless I misunderstood your earlier testimony, I thought you said that Bill McAbee, Michael Thompson, and Ron Wilson all had campaigned in the past on a platform that included to fire you.
Well, they talked about it, but they didn't actually get as deep into it as the other candidates did.
When you say get as deep into it, that's what I'm trying to drill down to.
You go on radio, send out political campaign letters, attend public meetings or group gatherings, continuously rile people up over it.
So the substance, would you agree with me, the substance of the message was the same as between both groups? They wanted to fire you.
No, I will not. I will not. I've never, like I said earlier, I've never experienced so much, I guess, heat. It was just a completely different environment.
And, I mean, it sounds like part of the concern you had was really more on the quantitative side. These folks in 2008 were doing a lot more to spread their message of wanting to fire you.
Well, I'd never had a candidate in the past or worked for a council member that would actually send a political letter out to the electorate saying that, you know, I'm the target. It's time to remove me.
As a principle, would you agree with me that there's nothing wrong with a candidate for county council running on a platform that specifically says, I believe we should change administrations?
I believe that, you know, they could say pretty much whatever they want to say. However, I believe that in the past, anyone any council member that had ever run that way, I felt at least would give me a chance to show them that I was doing a good job.
And what evidence did you have let me ask you, I'm going to try to break this down into time pieces. So leading up to the primary, other than statements to the public or platform statements or letters, you know, political letters say, were there any other evidence you had that the folks running to be elected to county council were trying to fire you?
Radio interviews.
Okay. But any meetings that you know of leading up to the primary?
I was told that they were having meetings, but I haven't proof early on that they were having those meetings. Other than Miss Wilson periodically have meetings at her house.
Okay, and again, I don't I certainly want you to tell me everything you know, and so just, if you know it for sure, let me know. If you think it might have been, but I'm really, again, focused on, because I know at some point.
I can tell you that Cindy Wilson did have several meetings at her house and invited the candidates over to talk about, or to make presentations to them, or to try to convince them, or to talk about issues that were coming up.
And this is before the primary?
Yes.
Do you know who attended them, in terms of what candidates attended those meetings besides Cindy Wilson herself?
I believe they all did.
Is there anything that you can think of as a matter of principle that is wrong with a candidate for public office having a meeting, inviting members of the public and or other candidates to talk about changing administration?
They can, again, they have the right to have meetings. I don't believe they have the right to discuss or to conspire. Well, at that time, I never even seen.
And we'll talk about the contract in a bit, but other than meetings that you think Cindy Wilson may have been having, are you certain she was having some meetings prior to the primary occurring?
I believe Bob Walter was having meetings then.
Were they similar meetings like the ones you described Ms. Wilson having?
Yes.
Any other meetings that you can think of prior to the primary that gave you concern about your job?
I think that was enough. We've got 2 city council members having meetings. Walter's office is right across the street. You can look out the window and see Eddie Moore going and coming on his way.
And this is prior to the primary.
Yeah.
So at this point, the sitting county council did not include anyone who was running for the first time for council, like Eddie Moore, correct?
The city council, that's correct.
After the primary occurred, and that was in June of 08, is that fair? I don't know the particular date, but at some point after the primary occurred, it was clear that 3 council members had lost the primary, right?
Right.
And the 3 you mentioned, Eddie Moore, Tom Allen, and Tommy Dunn, had won their respective primaries, correct?
Right.
And given the way Anderson County works, that typically meant that since they won the Republican primaries, they were most likely going to win the general election come November. Is that fair?
I don't believe there's any opposition.
If that's true, then they certainly would win, although I suppose a writing candidate would be.
I don't think a writing candidate would have had the time to be on the ballot as a, some of them could have, of course, with the way the election went. It was very difficult for a writing candidate to get on the ballot.
That's what I'm asking. 2008, is it possible at least that someone could have become a writing candidate for the November election?
Possible, but not probable.
Okay, again, not worried about probable. You know, Strom Thurmond won his seat once upon a time as a writing candidate.
I believe the only one that won it that way ever in the history of the country.
So clearly, though, by June 08, primary has now resolved, and it appears very likely, would you say, that the 3 we mentioned, Tommy Dunn, Tom Allen, and Eddie Moore, are going to be elected in the general election?
That is correct.
And if they are, they will take their seats January 1, 2009, correct?
Yes.
What happened after the primary election occurred that caused you concern about your job? Now I'm going to a different block of time.
Those council members elect. I know of one incident where a citizen contacted me and told me that he had engaged in a conversation with Tom Allen, and witnessed by, I believe, one of the other newly elected candidates, and he told me that Tom Allen told him how they had planned to get rid of me in January.
Who is this person that you?
His name was Brooks Brown.
Who is Brooks Brown?
He's a citizen. He was an activist. Showed up at the council meeting.
You say he was someone who was favorably disposed towards your service as an administrator?
No.
What are you aware of that happened after the primary election that causes you concern, besides this meeting you were talking about that Brooks Brown mentioned to you? Anything else?
Newly elected council members were meeting with staff members, which I arranged at times. Sometimes I didn't. They would contact the county department heads directly and ask for meetings. They would have these meetings supposedly on fact-finding missions, and they would, in conversations with some of the employees, they would make comments about, need to make change in the administration.
Now, just to help me out here, I mean, obviously the county council goes through an election process every 2 years where the entire council has to run for re-election, right?
Right.
And there has to be times where newly elected members of council are they're going to come in the next season, or the next.
That's right.
Is it part of your job as a county administrator when a newly elected council person is going to come into power? Is it part of your job to help arrange for such fact-finding meetings as you're describing?
Yes.
I mean, so basically what you're trying to do is get these folks up to speed on how county works. Is that fair?
It's fair.
And so you don't have a problem necessarily, doesn't sound like, with the fact that newly elected council members want to meet with various county staff as long as you arrange the meeting.
As long as they went through the administrator.
So the meetings themselves, if you arrange them, that's not a problem, correct?
Yes, those meetings, the ones that I arranged.
Even those meetings are a problem, but not because of the meeting. No, okay. Those are okay?
Yes.
And so you would have a problem with meetings between newly elected council members and county staff if you were not involved in arranging them. Is that fair to say?
Under this form of government, yes.
And you also have a problem with the content of the meetings if you felt like it was inappropriate for newly elected council members to make comments to staff about a change in administration. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And why is that inappropriate in your view?
I think first of all, they should not have contacted the staff directly. That's interfering with my ability to be able to do my job. Elected or they're in office or soon be in office. They should have, and I encouraged them to, if they needed the information, to contact me and I'd arrange the meeting. I do know that they were contacting other departments, going directly to them and asking for meetings, and then those department heads would tell me about it. And they would, I think someone actually just went in unexpected, unplanned.
And do you know how many such meetings occurred that you are complaining about?
No.
Can you give an example of one that you're complaining about? Like, who is the staff person that you're talking about?
Transportation,
Who is that?
and then probably Hope Hopkins would have been one,
What department is he in charge of?
transportation.
Anyone else?
That was the one that comes to mind that was, they were calling them directly.
So that was something that was not arranged by you.
That's right.
Do you know who met with Mr. Hopkins among the newly elected council members?
I believe at some point in time in the meeting it was arranged, all of them did, prior to that with Eddie Moore. Was one.
Can't think of any others at the moment.
Not yet. I'm thinking maybe Tom Allen went too at some point in time. I'm not sure. I don't know.
And just to make sure I've understood what you're telling me so far, you don't have a complaint, it sounds like, about any meetings between newly elected council members and county staff where you arrange the meetings. Is that fair? So the complaint you're having is where meetings were set up without your knowledge, you did not help arrange, and newly elected council members met with various county staff. And the only one you can recall at the time that was such a meeting unarranged by you was with Mr. Holt Hopkins in transportation, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And then later, apparently, Mr. Hopkins, you must have had a conversation with him
Yeah.
about the substance of that meeting.
Right.
And the beef you have, if I'm trying to summarize, is that some kind of comment or comments were made to Mr. Hopkins about a change in administration by one or more of the newly
Yes.
elected council members. Any other matters that caused you concern after the primary had occurred with respect to the newly elected council members? And I can cause you concern about whether you might be terminated.
Yes, I believe the meeting in August that occurred with the city council and the motion that Bob Warner wrote, and the interaction that he was having with Eddie Moore.
At that meeting or elsewhere?
In his office, they were having the private meetings.
Okay. And I'm going to categorize these into buckets if I can, but I know we've already talked about what I would call unarranged staffing between newly elected council members and staff, and that, as far as you recall right now, that was a meeting with the talking.
Yeah.
In addition to that, which was of concern to you, you have a meeting in August of 2008, which was a regular county council meeting? Is that right?
No, it was a special. I didn't have a meeting.
It was a special council meeting.
Correct.
That occurred in August 2008.
That's right.
And at that meeting, as you recall, a motion was made by Mr. Waldron.
I wasn't there. I was asked not to attend the meeting.
So how do you know that something happened at that meeting that was of concern to you?
It's in the minute.
Okay. So you looked at the minutes at some later time and saw that, as you recall, some motion was made by Mr. Waldron to do what?
I believe it was announced on the TV news media. It was all over. People were calling me that had attended the meeting.
Right. And I'm asking, what was it that they were calling you? What happened at the meeting that was of concern? A motion to do what?
To suspend me without cause in January, and to suspend a finance director, and to replace me with an interim administrator.
Okay. And I think we already talked about this. You don't recall whether or not that motion was passed.
I don't think it was passed.
Anything else that happened at that August 2008 special meeting of council that caused you concern about whether or not you might be terminated at some time?
I believe the content of the meeting appeared that Walbert and Wilson were trying to give us some kind of a witch hunt.
Based on your reading of the minutes, you mean?
Yes.
And the witch hunt, I assume you mean would be directed at you?
Yes.
Do you know anything further about what you think that witch hunt would look like?
They kept talking about trying to do some type of a forensic audit of some sort.
Okay. Do you think that occurred during part of that August 2008 special council meeting?
It occurred there, and that issue came up many times at many county council meetings, brought up by Cindy Wilson and by Walter.
You mean at regular county meetings too?
Yes.
One or more of those two folks, Cindy Wilson and Bob Water, might make comment, or I don't know if they ever made a motion, but they certainly might have made comment, it sounds like, about what? Conducting a forensic audit?
I believe, I don't recall exactly, I believe there were motions made too.
And the thing, what was of concern to you as the county administrator as to whether or not the county council might authorize a forensic audit? Why is that a problem?
Do you understand the definition of a forensic audit?
Yes, I think I do. Pretty extensive, I suspect.
It's more than just being extensive. You're accusing the administration of doing something wrong.
But that's why I'm asking, why is it of concern? If you've done nothing wrong, why would you be concerned about a forensic audit?
First of all, it would be very difficult to do a forensic audit to look at every single transaction. It would cost millions and millions of dollars to do that. And I believe that was determined by the existing county council. But it implied that after we had received, I know the whole time, the entire time I was there, extremely clean audit opinions with very few management issues, winning the Government Finance Officers Association award for the audit. It just kept implying that there was something wrong, like they were trying to put this cloud over the administration and the rest of the council.
Would you agree with me, Mr. Preston, that county council has every right to decide to conduct a forensic audit if they wish?
They have that right, providing there's due process through this. I mean, I believe they do.
So it wasn't the fact of someone talking about possibly doing a forensic audit, you would agree there's nothing wrong with that?
No.
You would not agree?
No, I wouldn't agree there's anything wrong with it, but combining that with the suspension of the administrator and the finance director, I think there is something wrong with that.
Well, you think it must go together, that if you're going to do a forensic audit, you must suspend the county administrator to do it?
No, I'm saying when you talk about that type of audit in the same meeting that you're going to, you make a motion to suspend the administrator and finance director, it is together.
Okay, so then, did you think there was something wrong with talking about suspending the county administrator in and of itself?
Absolutely.
Why?
It's a contract. You know, supposed to have they should at least give me the ability to have a hearing of some sort.
And that was happened at an August 2008 special meeting and/or some other county council.
And the fact I was asked not to come to the meeting.
The August 2008.
Yes,
You were at other council meetings, though, were you not?
I was.
And some of those, apparently, there was some discussion of the same type of thing, a forensic audit and/or the suspension of the county administrator in January 2009.
I never was at a regular county council meeting where the suspension of the administrator came up. A meeting I was asked not to attend.
Now, we've talked about two buckets so far. One is the unarranged staff meeting with Mr. Hopkins, this August 2008 special meeting with council. And you had indicated, I would call this a third bucket, but you said there were meetings that were going on in Bob Waldrop's office that were of concern to you with respect to your possible termination. Is that fair?
Yes.
Are there any other categories of activity that concerns you between the time of the primary and the time of November 2008 when your severance agreement was voted on that caused you concern about possible termination?
Well, the newly elected council started sending me directives on county stationery, directing me not to comply with my responsibilities as related to bond issues and construction contracts.
How many of those directives did you receive that you recall?
I remember, I think 2, I believe. There were more than that.
And to your knowledge,